before we get into liabilities. And on liabilities, what we're going to do is present values, future values, okay? And then I want you to really work on those types of problems over the weekend. And the thing is, too, I'm going to especially know how to do present values, future values. You guys have done this before, right? Anybody here not know how to compound interest? You do, don't you? Right? Invest a certain amount and you get interest. And then you get interest on the interest. So, and it just keeps building and building. Okay? And discounting? What's discounting? Just taking interest out and putting out in this direction. So we'll go through that. I want you to get it conceptually. If you get it conceptually, doing it mathematically is easy. Okay? So, and then in the following chapter, chapter 10, we're going to do long-term debt, which is primarily bonds. And the way we value bonds, I mean in the real world value bonds, is to discount all their present cash flows. So as interest rates change, the value of bonds change. You guys have heard of stocks and bonds, right? You can invest in stocks. That's owning shares of another company. You already know all about that, right? Or you can invest in companies' liabilities, in bonds. They issue bonds. They're borrowing money. And you can invest in those. The value of those changes every time interest rates change, okay? And that's kind of a tough concept in a principles class. And so we're going to spend a fair amount of time on bonds. We'll spend time in class on bonds. Well, there's examples. We'll use our 45 minutes between classes a few times on bonds, and we'll have a review session where we do bonds, right? It's going to be tough. It's one of those things that I teach cash flows. You know how to do the problem, you got it made. On the inventory, you know how to do basically the problem, you got it made. Bonds going to be the same way. Here's one big problem, okay? So, try to do that. Anyways, so what I want you to do is get down present values, future values real fast first. Then we'll do bonds, because we're going to use it in that chapter, okay? Accountants use it everywhere. This is used everywhere. Everything is worth a discounted present value of future cash flows. We all are, unfortunately. We go into it. I know everybody has infinite wealth, or infinite value. Well, infinite value, right? Everybody does, of course. But if you get run over by a truck, family goes to court and sues, what they're going to get is the discounted present value of future cash flows, not your infinite value. Right? Doesn't work that way. Okay. All right. Anyway, let's go back to property, plant, and equipment for a few minutes. Remember we did this thing where you sell the assets and we have the gain or loss. That's the last thing we did last time. What if you sell the asset mid-year? What do you think you'd need to do if you sold it mid-year? Well, if you sold it mid-year, yeah. Well, anytime, yeah. Well, that'd be halfway through the year, 6/12. Yeah. So what are you doing there? Before you record the gain or loss of the sale, before you record the sale, right? What do you need to do? Depreciate it right up to that point, okay? So, which is going to be what? You're going to debit depreciation expense for something, right, guys? Whatever it is. Whatever the depreciation is for the days, months, whatever, right? So let's say you were doing $4,000 depreciation a year straight line, and it's half a year. What would you do? Put in another 2, right, guys? You would. Okay, that makes sense? Be sure to do that. Record the depreciation first. Now, what has that done? It put depreciation expense up under operating expenses in your income statement, didn't it? What did it do to the gain? Oh, you just increased accumulated depreciation, which reduced the book value. So what happened to the gain? It's 2 more than it would have been, or the loss is 2 less, right, when you sell it. Does this make sense? Because if you change accumulated depreciation, of course that changes the book value, which changes the gain and loss, doesn't it? Now, why do we care about this? I want the depreciation expense to be in operating expenses from operating the business. I want the gain or loss to be in non-operating expenses, right? It's not from operating the business. It's peripheral to the business or incidental. So I want the depreciation expense to be recorded right up to the point when I sell it, because that's the cost of using it, right up to the point when I sell it. When I sell the asset, then I want the gain or loss to be whatever it is. So you got to do both. Does that make sense? Now, it might not be material, or it might be real material, depending how big the asset is and what portion of the year, right? How much depreciation it is. But it's changing where the income, right, hits the expense and the gain and loss, where they hit in your financial statements. That's all it's doing, okay? So, you guys are looking piece of equipment. They're $20,000, and it has no salvage value, okay? So I'm depreciating it, I guess, for 5 years straight line. I'd be putting $4,000 a year into accumulated depreciation, right, guys? So let's say I depreciated it for 4 years. So I've got $4,000 a year credit here. What's the debit, by the way, for that? Credit accumulated depreciation is under depreciation. Debit what? Depreciation expense, right, guys? Yes, 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 okay. All right, so I've done this now. I've done it 4 times. So at the beginning of the year, I have 16 in here. Everybody good? All right? So what's my book value? It's 4, isn't it? 20 less 16. If you depreciate half a year, what'd you just do? You made this be 18. Everybody got the idea? So now let's say I sell it for 3. Debit cash, right? What else? What do you want to credit? Sell an asset. What do you want to credit? Equipment. How much? There's a simple little example here. 20. What else do you have to do? Debit accumulated depreciation. How much? 18. Ah, and what do I have? I have a gain of 1. Okay, now that would be doing it right, huh? Because I recorded this half-year depreciation. What if I fail to do that? What happens? Oh, it's still 16 there, isn't it? Everybody see it? And what I'd have instead, 16 here, what would I have, guys? A loss of 1. So I'd have a loss of 1, but I'd be short on my depreciation expense by 2. You get the idea? My operating expense would be too high by 2, right? And then I'd show a gain of 1 instead of a loss of 1. Okay? So we just put it in the right place. Does that help a little? It's not a big deal, but just be sure and depreciate it right at the date, okay? When you get rid of it. Okay, another thing I wanted to talk about is what happens if you extend the life of an asset? Can you extend the life? Yeah. Or shorten it, either one. Can you change the salvage value? Yeah. Okay? It's just a judgment, right? You made the best estimate you could when you bought the asset. You decided how long it was going to last, right? You decided which depreciation method to use based on how fast you think you're going to use it, a straight line or some accelerated method like double declining balance or something, right? Okay, what were the other 2 methods? Some of you use digits and units of production. So yeah, you've got to be able to handle all of those, right? And you will, right? Tuesday, you're going to just nail these things. Boy, it's amazing how these quizzes just seem to be more and more all or nothing. People really have a wire where they have nothing, right? It's worse and worse. Because the material's getting a little more complex, isn't it? So keep your head into it and keep going after it. Keep pounding on that problem until you can do it, right? Keep pounding on that problem until you can do it, and it'll be on that paper. It just will. I see it over and over and over and over. People who think they can't do it can do this stuff. You can if you want. Anything you put your head to, right? Just go after it. Anyway, so we make this estimate. Well, could we decide later that our estimate was not right? You know, I was going to sell the asset for $20,000 at the end, and I said, oh, I'll never get more than 15. Yeah, you can change it. It's okay, right? I thought it was going to last for 10 years, and I say, nah, if we make 8, we're lucky. We'll take it, right? So you can shorten the life, extend the life, whatever. Okay? If you do that, you do not go back and correct prior years. Because you made the best estimate you could, right? So it's not that you were wrong, it's just you made the best estimate you could, and now the situation has changed. So you don't go back to the prior years. What do? Change this year's depreciation and out into the future. Everybody got it? So let's say that I bought an asset. Let's say I bought an asset. Make it simple. I buy it for $10,000, okay? And I have 2,000, or let's make it 1,000. 1,000 salvage value. So here's my cost. Here's my salvage value. What's my depreciable value? Everybody agree? Okay, and now I depreciate this thing. I think I'm going to depreciate it for 10 years, okay? And I'm going to use straight line. Everybody like it? 10-year straight line. What would you do? Just divide 10 in there, wouldn't you? How much depreciation expense are you going to have every year? 900. You're going to do every single year. Okay, so let's say that we have done, I don't know, let's say we've done 6 years of depreciating the thing, right? 6 years are gone. I thought it was a 10-year life. I thought it was $1,000 salvage, okay? And I do 6 years depreciation. What'll be in each year it'll be debit what? Depreciation expense for 900. Credit what? Accumulated depreciation, yeah. Okay, so what I've got is in equipment, or whatever the asset is, equipment or building, I've got 10,000 in here, right guys? What would I have in accumulated depreciation after doing this for 6 years?
5,400.
Yeah, 5,400, very good. What's the remaining book value? 4,006. Okay, let's say now I think it's going to go 12 years. Okay, I'm going to use this not 10 years now. I'm changing my estimate to 12 years. I'm still going to use straight line, but I think this asset's turned out really well for me. I think that I'm going to be able to sell it for $1,500, right? It's working out better than I expected. Everybody see it? So I got rid of those two. What would I do now? All you do is you take your remaining book value of the thing, right? What do you have left that you haven't depreciated? How much is that? Cost less the accumulated depreciation, of course, is your book value. You guys know that, don't you? Getting pounded into you. Pounded into yourself, really. Okay, so my book value right now is how much, we said? 4,600. What do I think my salvage value is? Because that's what I have left I could depreciate, right? That's it. Okay, what do I think my salvage value is now? Yeah, whatever I changed it to. So how much do I have left to depreciate? What's my new depreciable value for the time left? 3,100, outstanding. And how many years do I have left? Let's see. It was originally a 10-year life, right guys? And I did 6 years. How many were left? 4, and I was going to depreciate what? 900 a year for 4 years, and I would have been there, huh? Would have been fine. I'd have been up to my 9,000 accumulated depreciation. But now how much do I want to depreciate? It's going to go 12 years. I've only used 6. How many left? 6 more. How much to depreciate? 3,100. So what would you do? Divide it by the remaining 6 years. Everybody see it? My life is now 12. I've used up 6. How many are left? 6 more. So let it be common sense. How much do I want to depreciate? 3,100. Why? It's a $10,000 asset. I have 5,400 already accumulated depreciation, right, in the account. Accumulated depreciation. I got 4,600 book value left. I think I'm going to sell it for 1,500 now, right? So there's only 3,100 left to depreciate, and I've got 6 years to do it over. So divide 6 into 3,100, and what do you get?
516.67.
Way to go, Keith. 516.67. And what will you do every year then for those 6 years? Well, subtract it from book value. What's your journal entry? Debit. Depreciation expense. That's always how you do depreciation, right? You guys getting this idea? Everybody's going to quit giving me different types of entries for this, doing the same thing, right? When you record depreciation, you might screw up the number, but you are not going to screw up the accounts, right? What is it? Debit. Depreciation expense, if you're using it up, and it's credit accumulated depreciation. When you do bad debt expense, right, you are replenishing that allowance, making it bigger again, right? Replenishing it. And you're writing off the sales as a bad debt expense you think you're never going to collect. What do you debit every single time? Bad debt expense. What do you credit? Allowance. The only problem you have is figuring out the number. You might screw up the numbers, but you can't screw up the accounts, can you? So everybody, please make a pledge to yourself and to me not to screw that up, okay? And we hit the test, and on this, on the quiz, appreciation, and the test, and the final, okay? You won't have those types of mistakes. It's really sad when you get the right number, you got these ridiculous accounts. Geez, that's the hard part. But then you didn't know what you were doing, so I guess we still can't give you credit, right? Let me give you credit. I think it'd be fantastic if you guys end up with a GPA above 3.0. That'd be great. And I think it might happen. That's something. Typically I give what? A 2.4. That's after 30% drop. That's a 2.4. Yeah, so yeah, it's that flash. So you guys are doing great. Just keep doing it. Start fixing those mistakes you're making. Stop getting questions wrong, okay? That's fine. Okay, anyway. All right. Okay, what will be the balance in accumulated depreciation after 12 years? What do you think, guys? So here we were, we had accumulated depreciation. With how much in it? 5,400 because we did 906 times, right guys? We had that in there. Then what are you going to do in the next, 6 years? I'm going to put 516.67 in, right? Debit depreciation, expense, credit, accumulated depreciation. I'm going to do it how many times? 6. This is going to be 6 times. How much did you say that total to? Of course, it's 3,100. We calculated it ourselves, so we know what it is. What's 3,100 plus 5,400? Oh, is that what we wanted in accumulated depreciation? Well, it's an asset that has a cost of 10, you guys. Come on. I got 8,500 in there. What's the difference? 1,500. What was that? It's my new residual value or salvage value. You can do it, can't you? Let yourself think instead of try to remember, and you got it made. Okay? All right. Let's try another thing. Let's say that I buy, oh, this really happened to me. Oh, this is terrible. I was fairly new at Oyster Mushroom Farms, like 25, maybe, 24, 25. And so it's right out of school, 21. And turned 22 years later. But anyway, that's me. And so I'm operations manager at Oyster Mushroom Farms. And so I have about 100 employees reporting to me. Ridiculous. I didn't have to do what I was doing. Screwed everything up. But anyway, wow. But fun. Fun challenge. Anyway, we hired this truck driver. And the fellow worked for me, the manager worked for me, hired him, and didn't check him out very well, unfortunately. And we had this brand new truck. It was just gorgeous. Oyster Mushroom Farms along the side with a big mushroom on it. Really pretty. We had a marketing manager that wanted to be an ad going up and down the freeway. It was fine. So it looked really pretty. It was really nice. Great big huge tractor trailer, very semi, right? I have no idea what it cost. I can't remember, but it's really, I can't remember how much, but it was, now it'd be a few $100,000, right? It's a lot of money. Yeah, a lot. 18, right? Anyway, so the first week we had it, the driver apparently drove off a loading dock and put a hole in the oil leak and didn't realize he had done it, I guess. And it was, of course, a diesel engine. They run real, real hot. And it was summer. It was hot. It gets hot even in the Pacific Northwest. This is Olympia, Washington. He's driving from Olympia, Washington to Seattle, and he got out on the freeway, and he drove for a while. Brand new. How much depreciation was there in this truck? 0. Brand new, right? And depreciating a month, right? He drove up the freeway, he melted the engine into itself. And we spent, I don't know, 30,000 then, 50,000, 60,000 now, probably, right? Maybe more, right? Maybe more now. Because I have inflation expenses, and it's got to be more, much more. Anyway, we spent that much putting a new engine, a new rebuilt engine, in the place of a brand new engine. We made the truck worth less, not worth more, right? By doing that. Journaling to that. Credit cash, credit payable, whatever, right? Sometimes. And debit what? Is that going to be more truck? No. You're not going to debit truck. Are you going to debit accumulated depreciation, reducing the accumulated depreciation because you made the truck that's going to last longer? No, it's not going to last longer. It's going to last less time. Miracle, I didn't get fired. Truck driver did get fired. The manager hired or didn't, and I didn't. For both real life. Right? So then what? We fired the truck driver not because he drove up the loading dock, because we never wanted him in the truck. It's our fault he did it. It's always your fault if something was wrong after the manager. It was my fault. But then the good thing about that was I worked for the president of the company, so whose fault was it really? Who was dumb enough to hire me? Yeah, so it's his fault. And he owned 100% of the stock. So I did not tell him that at the time. I didn't even think that. I thought it was my fault. Anyway, always take that deal. So, what's the debit?
Operating repair expense.
Repair expense? That's when I use it and I'm maintaining it.
Happy driver expense.
crappy driver expense, but expense, is this an expensive operations? I think this is a loss of stupidity of manager who hired a stupid manager who hired a, oh, I'm not supposed to say stupid because my grandson's saying stupid now. So I say stupid. So you're not stupid. You're challenged. Okay? Like that. Yeah, whatever. Okay. That's okay. She's making it straight. Are you? I have no idea what your grade is. Yeah, anyway, so. Why don't I care what your grade is? It's not mine. I want y'all to do really well, right? But it's, when you guys see me next to this coming semester and we're walking around the campus, if you get a D from me, right, you get a C, okay? Don't look away. Look right at me. I don't have a clue what you got. I don't care what you got. It's not my business, right? I'm never going to ask you how much money you make either. It's depressing for me, right? You make so much more. And you go out there and work. Don't worry about it. Relax. Okay? Do that with everything. Nobody remembers it. And if they do, something's wrong with them. Right? It's not about judging people. All I'm doing here is judging your performance. That's it. In one class. That's it. Right? So then we can put it in your transcript and communicate to potential employers how good you are at this. Right? And they're going to look at your whole person and everything you've done. You everybody got that idea? So just relax. How many of you are working hard to get a good grade in here? Stop it. What do I want you to do instead? Learn this stuff and take it with you. You're not here to get grades. You're here to get skills. Oh. And how many of you are working for a degree? Don't bother. The degree comes automatically. The grades come automatically if you work. And the degree comes automatically if you take the classes and you keep working. Right? And then you come out with a whole bunch of knowledge, and oh, by the way, they give you a piece of paper. You can buy a degree online, you don't have to go through all this. It's really easy. You can go get a PhD right now if you want. They sell them online. Of course, nobody will hire you. But you're a doctor. You tell everybody you're a doctor then. You can be a medical doctor online. That's right. It wouldn't be cool when you say you're a doctor. Yeah. Retire. A little bored, but you retire. Yeah. So, what was I talking about? Oh, okay, the destructive. I think it would be loss, right? It's a casualty loss. You bet. By the way, we didn't collect any insurance on that thing. No, wait. Okay, we can't. So, a casualty loss. But let's go back to what you were saying. What if I drive the truck for, how long do the tires last? I don't know, not very long, probably. 50,000 miles? 60,000 miles? Maybe. Okay. Okay, you think it's 60. Okay, you don't know. You're just a little older than them. Anybody know? Truck driving guy?
Not like semi-tires.
Yeah, semi-tires, I had no idea. Yeah. But there's 18 of them, and what are you supposed to cost me? A couple thousand? I don't know. Yeah, a lot. Now what they're doing is they're putting them together so there's only, instead of 18, there'll still be 2 in the front, which brings it down to 16, and so it's 8 plus 2 is 10. And they're real wide. I've got a new brother-in-law that just got married. Yeah, anyway, it's not her first marriage. Yeah, they're in their 60s. So anyway, or late 50s, I guess. Anyway, he says that all the rigs are going to have these double wide tires. They look really funny when you're on the road. So be watching for those in the long haul, cross country. They put on these, and it says, how much do those cost? And he says, I don't know. Unbelievable. Yeah, but they apparently are safer and last longer. Right, so I don't know. But anyway, so how much do you think it would be?
The steering tires last approximately 125,000, and the trailer tires last about 200,000.
Wow, how much do they cost?
It's a little over 1,000, I think.
A little over 1,000. Okay, so maybe we're 20,000 to do the rig. Everybody agree? Maybe we're 20 grand. That's a lot of miles. That's good. They've done good. Okay, so they probably keep the right amount of air in it versus what I do, right? Yeah. Anyway, so 20,000 miles or $20,000 rather. You used up the tires. Credit, cash, or accounts payable. There what? Repair expense. It doesn't matter how much it is. It's repair expense. How about you put a new roof on a building? Repair expense. Is it making the building last longer? Well, in a way, if you don't put a roof on, the leaks and stuff. But no, it's just normal maintenance. Everybody got the idea of changing the oil, normal maintenance. It doesn't matter how much it costs. It's just normal maintenance. Okay? But how about, though, if I buy, so it'd just be debit, repair, maintenance expense, right? So this is a period cost. I cost it in the current period, right? Expensive, okay? Expensive, okay? What if, though, I've used the truck a long time, and now I rebuild the engine? How about that one? And now it's going to last a lot longer. So I've driven it a couple 100,000 miles. I'm going to capitalize. What do you mean by capitalize? Love it. Yeah, record as an asset. When you record an asset, you capitalize it. That's it. Debit an asset. And when you record an expense, you expense it. That's it. Okay, so excellent. All right. So yeah, I record that as an asset, except do I have more of an asset because I rebuilt the engine? Not more than the original cost. So what I can prefer to do, and you can do this either way, you could debit the piece of equipment if you want, increasing it. And what does that do, by the way? When you debit the equipment goes up, accumulated depreciation stays the same. What about your remaining depreciable value? It goes up by the amount that you invested, right? More asset, exactly the same amount of accumulated depreciation. It went up, didn't it, guys? Everybody agree to that? So now you would depreciate more into the future. Well, it probably is going to live longer, right? It's going to have a longer life. This truck's going to live. Anyway, it's going to have a longer life, huh? Everybody agree to that? Okay, so you'd have more years to depreciate, but you'd also have more costs to depreciate. Everybody good? Okay, that would make sense. But you don't really have more asset, I think. So what you could do instead is debit accumulated depreciation. What will a debit do to accumulated depreciation? It'll bring it down. So now your cost stays the same, but your accumulated depreciation goes down, so what do you have? More book value, right? More remaining value to depreciate. Works the same way. But I think that reflects reality better, don't you? Still the same truck. It's just got, you extend its life by rebuilding the engine, okay? How about, though, let's do another one. This is awful. A whole bunch of different ways. So you just have to think about what's going on here. How about if I'm a real small company, and I buy a truck that a big trucking company uses, right? They're doing cross-country haul, and they've driven hundreds of thousands of miles in this rig, and it's on its last legs, right? I mean, the trailer just, the springs are gone, the shocks are gone, the paint's gone, but it's still a trailer, right? It's still a trailer. I can still use it, right? And it's still functional. And then the tractor cab, the truck part, right? It's in horrible shape too. The engine needs to be rebuilt. The interior needs to be replaced. It needs to be painted. You got the idea? It needs everything. It needs tires. It just needs everything. It's on its last leg. So they're getting rid of it. And they sell it to me real cheap. What do I do when I fix all that? Including changing the oil and doing everything, right? It needs that too. Spark plugs and everything. I mean, I do everything to this truck. I take this truck that's just really in bad shape and rebuild it and make it into something I can use for 5 years. Got the idea? So I buy it for $10,000 and I spend $30,000 on it. Now what?
Just do $40,000 asset.
It's a $40,000 asset. You bet. I capitalize all of it. I debit all of it to truck, wouldn't you? And then I depreciate the whole thing over the 5 years, right? Well, that's not right. Does that make sense? So what do we got? You could have a loss on something that just damaged, right? Okay, you had to replace it. You could have what? Repair and maintenance for normal costs, even if it's really expensive. Or you could have an extension of the life, right? By doing a rebuild or something, which would either reduce accumulated depreciation, you start depreciating it again, right? Or increase the asset and depreciate it some more. Either way, both of those alternatives, they show you that in the book too. Okay, and then what's the other thing that we just put in? You could actually make it more of an asset. Another way to think about that, how about if I bought a new truck and it doesn't have a refrigeration unit in it? And I add one. Right? Did you make it a better truck by adding a refrigeration unit? Can you charge more for the freight if you have a refrigeration and if you don't? Of course you can, right? Because you have to pay for having refrigeration, right? So what would I do with that? If I took the trailer that had no refrigeration and I insulated it and I put in a refrigeration unit and all that stuff. So I turned it into a refrigeration unit. What do you think I'd do with that? Expense? Is that a repair and maintenance? Nope. And you haven't appreciated it yet, even if you had. If you roll back the clock and say it's going to last longer because of that, it's not going to last longer. It's better. It's more. What would you do with it? Capitalize it. Debit trust. Yeah. Or you can use a separate account, if you want. Refrigeration equipment or something like that. Got it? There's another one. What's that exactly the same as? That's the idea where you bought the used one, you rebuilt the whole thing, right? Same thing. You bought an asset, you made it better, right? Anything you do to make an asset better, more asset, you debit to an asset, right? In fact, if I lease a building, let's say you lease to this building, right? It's owned by the university, but if it wasn't, let's say it's owned by some company and they lease it out. Actually, the university used to lease it out. We owned it and they had private businesses in here. So if you lease the building and then you spend a whole bunch of money making it look nice like this. By the way, this is probably the nicest classroom on campus. I'm sorry for the new people coming here. Whatever you agree is, Bill Spellman.
School communications.
Oh, school communications is pretty nice. Although I always use that room with those windows that go. Oh, we were in there, weren't we?
That room is so cool.
You like that room? It echoes. Because I scream, right? Yeah, and it bounces back. I'm listening to myself. Yeah. Anyway, and then when those blinds don't work, oh, it's hot. Yeah. I like it. Maybe I like this better too because we're looking at that. Well, you're not. I am. Yeah. So, well, you have to sort it next year. Yeah. Anyway, now what were we talking about? Oh, if you lease a facility and you spend a whole bunch of money, hundreds of thousands, millions, doesn't matter. You're leasing the property so you don't own it. What do you do with that expenditure you did to fix it up? And you're going to use it, say, for a 10-year lease. Capitalize it, right? Which means you record an asset. We call it leasehold improvements. And we amortize it over its life, usually with straight line. And I spent $1 million fixing the building up, and I'm going to use it 10 years. What did it cost me a year? $100,000 maybe. Straight line. Okay, everybody got the idea? It's just like depreciation. Okay, really good. All right, so let's switch gears and let's do specified type stuff. Okay. I'm going to make this really simple. It's going to be something you've heard before. I don't even apologize for that because I want you to get it really solid. I want you to think in these terms. Let me ask you this. If I offered you $1 million to work for me next year, you don't have to do anything illegal, right, or immoral, or, unethical. I don't have to do that, okay? So it's legitimate. I have to do $1 million to work for you next year. Can I do it? Sure. I mean, you could suffer through anything, right? $1 million, right? I'll do it, right? Okay. You don't get the money for 100 years. Still want to do it. Why doesn't she want to do it? What's wrong with her? What's that? Could be dead. Yeah. But even beyond that, even if, I was listening to a big company, I guarantee to give her $1 million next 100 years from now. Would she still want it? Could she take that note receivable for you, note payable from me, for $1 million to a bank and get them to discount it and give her its value? And would she be happy? It's not worth it. Because of what? Time value of money. If you discount $1 million for 100 years, somebody might do that for us. And I'm pretty risky, right? To be honest with you, getting paid are real slim. I'm going to be long gone in 100 years. But maybe we set the money aside even if it's there, right? So there's a normal risk maybe. What if it was $1 million and you're going to get it? Okay, so what would we call that $1 million? You're going to get it in the future. Guess what you call it? We're brilliant. What are you going to call money, the cash that you are going to receive in the future? A future value. Isn't that clever? They named it that. The value you're going to get in the future is a future value. You like it? Guess what we call it, what it's worth now? A present value. It's amazing. Don't let this stuff be hard, you guys. It's just not. Okay? It's intuitive. So that's a future value. When? I've said, 100 years from now? And I'd like to know what that thing is worth now. because that's what you're going to get for it if you take it to the bank and try to get some cash now, we could actually spend it, right? Even if the bank believed they were going to get the money 100 years from now, right, and they trusted that, right, even if that were true, okay, I guess the money's in a Swiss bank or something, okay, what kind of discount rate should we use? What we're going to do is we're going to discount it for that period of time, and what we mean by that is we're going to take it times 1 over 1 plus the interest rate for the number of periods, okay, and we're going to do this slowly here in a second, okay, so what kind of interest do you think there should be there? Oh, that's a hard choice. You have to guess what the cash flows are going to be, and you have to guess what the interest rate should be, or negotiate it with somebody. Let's say she should earn 10% even, right? Let's say that you should earn 10% given my risk level, okay? We'll talk about that in a minute. And it's for 100 periods. Somebody with a calculator want to do this for us? Put 1 over 1.10, 1 plus the interest rate, and raise it to the 100th. And that'll tell you what each one of those dollars is worth right now. What's each one of those dollars worth? You should leave all the decimal places in your calculator and read carefully. Going over a long ways. What'd you get? 1 over 1.1, right? Raised to the 100th. It's 100 years. What's each dollar worth? I'm figuring out what each dollar is worth. She's going to get millions, so I'll take a million times that. How much is it?
It's like 0.0007 something.
Yeah, those are dollars, right?
Yeah, but
0.0007, so 700ths of a cent or something. Okay, take that times 1 million. Leave it in your calculator and take it times 1 million. 1 plus 6 zeros. What is it worth?
$72.56.
Okay, I want to pay her $72.56. All right? Now, is that intuitive? Would you have said that $1 million 100 years from now, discounted at 10%, is only worth 73 bucks? Would you have guessed that number? Now, that's the problem. You can't intuitively guess what the answers are going to be. You actually have to compute it. There's interest on interest on interest on interest on interest on interest on interest, right? Do you believe that if you invest $72.56 at 10% interest, and you leave it there for 100 years, that it will turn into $1 million? Yes, you should believe that. That's true. Wow. Does investing make you rich? Yeah, but what's the rub on investing? You have to leave it there. You have to leave it there. Okay? And you have to have a decent return, right? Interest rate makes a difference. Okay, but what's the problem with interest rates? When are they high? When you have a lot of what? Risk-return trade-offs, right? You really don't want this deal now taking more than a year for 70 bucks. No way. Okay. So, what does risk mean? Risk-return we talked about. Okay, I assume risk and I get return. The return is going to be the interest rate. Okay. What's the risk? Risk of what? What do you mean by risk? I was here this time. Well, risk what? What is it?
Risk of losing money.
Yeah, risk of losing money. Risk of not only not getting paid your earnings, but you don't get back your investment. Okay, got it? That's risk. Are people afraid of risk? Yeah. Can you make money because they're more afraid than you are? Yeah, or because they're irrationally afraid, and you're rational about taking risk. You bet. If you're unwilling to take risk, other people will take your money away from you. You work really hard, and then they'll take it because you're afraid of risk. And you pay a whole lot to avoid risky situations. And I'm not talking about risk where you risk your life. Okay, it's not that. Although, you know what? If we were terrified of risking our life, we couldn't drive a car. Right? Probably couldn't eat. Now you're terrified. Right? You can't do it. You can't live, can you? Right? You can't survive if you're afraid. You couldn't even walk. Right? You might get run over. So, but you couldn't stay home either because the roof might fall on you. There's risk, right? Get used to it. It's okay. Relax about it. And especially your generation, huh? Right? Why? My grandkids are going to be worse than you guys are. They're just so protected. We want them to be protected. We love them. We should throw them out in the street. I mean, not quite that. My parents did. No, I I went in the street, but it was okay if I rode a bicycle anywhere, as long as I didn't go in the street. It was really hard when I was 9. Would you let a 9-year-old do that now? I could go anywhere. I was free at 9. It was wonderful. Oh, by the way, I could go in the street too if I was going to pick strawberries. So I was making money. Then I could go anywhere. I really wanted. My brother, one time we were going down a hill. We were going to pick beans. We were going down a hill and the brakes went out. And he went airborne. Right? And he started back up the other side of the hill and went off the side. It was really moving. I mean, just really. And I was trying to stay with him because I was stupid. I just let him go. Anyway, he goes flying up and went right into a blackberry bramble thing and went down, I don't know, probably 15 feet. You know how they grow really, really big sometimes? And he's down in this thing, and he's screaming at me to get him out of there. And I'm 9. Yeah, it's hilarious. And anyway, but hindsight, it's hilarious. We still talk about it. So, but we made some money. Yeah, okay. So, the parents don't know. We never told our parents that happened. We got yelled at for it. And that's not better time than you yell at your kids or get hurt instead of protecting them. Yeah. Anyway, why am I talking about this crap? All right, so let's do it. Okay, what would you have if you invested $100, right? And you invested it for 3 years. What would it grow to in 3 years? And let's use 10% interest. So what I'm saying is, I've got a present value at time 0 of $100. That's what we call that. It's present value. What I have now is the present value. No big deal. When somebody gives you mathematical notation, what do you immediately want to do? When you see PV0, what do you want to do? Ask what that means. When you're in a math class, you're sitting in a math class, what do you need to do when they give you a variable, a letter that means something? Ask them what? What does it mean? Do this in all your science classes, all your math classes, get into physics or something. Absolutely do this, right? As soon as they put something up, and you don't know what it is, and they keep right on going, what do you need to do? Whoa, what is that? And they may be irritated, because they may think everybody in the world knows that. Doesn't everybody in the world know that PV with a 0 next to it means present value at time 0? No, only people who know it know it. So until you do, right, figure it out. Ask, just ask. One simple question will save you, okay? That's what that is, present value at time 0. And if I wanted to calculate a future value, I said I'm going to leave it for 3 periods, right? If I want to calculate a present value 3 periods from now, and that'd be future value at time n, right? N is any number of periods. You like it? N is any number of periods. Okay? So it's 3 here, so that's why the 3 is sitting there. Okay? Future value at time n. That's the way we write this stuff. It's no big deal. Okay? And then the only other thing you need to know if I wanted to calculate this future value is the interest rate, okay? And I said the interest rate is going to be 10%. You know what, you guys? How many times have we done this? If you knew 3 of those things, you can calculate the 4th one. If you know the present value, the future value, the number of periods, you can calculate the interest rate. If you knew the present value, the future value, and the interest rate, you get the number of periods. You guys with me? You can do this. I want you to be able to do it. When we do this quiz on Tuesday, you're going to be able to do this. And you probably can't quite yet now because you don't exactly know what you're doing, even though you know how to do this. I want you to practice and get so you can. Okay? That's what we're after. That practice quiz out there, I bet there are a whole bunch of questions like this. In the book, there's a whole bunch of questions like this. Okay? All right, so what would I do? I'd take the present value at time 0, right? Well, if I invested $100 at 10% interest, what would I have at the end of the year? I'm calculating a future value here. Let's do it directly. Let's calculate it. What would I do? I'd take this times what? How many of you want your $100 back at the end of the year? Everybody. What else do you want if you're earning 10% interest? Interest, how much? 10% of 100 is $10. What I want is 1 plus the interest rate back. 1.10. What I want is 1 plus the interest rate, you guys. Everybody agree to that? At the end of the first year, how much do I want? This is a future value 1 year from now. Got it? How much do I want? 110. Now here's what happens. I'm not going to earn $10 interest each year, am I? I earn 10 the first year. But how many of you, if you invested $100 in some investment account, and you earned $10 and now you have 110, would be happy with just $10 earnings the next year? No, I don't have 100 invested now, I have 110 invested now. What do I want, you guys? I want 10% of the 110, which is how much? 11. Yeah, so I want 110 plus the 11 at the end of the next year. Would everybody agree with that? Just conceptually, are you getting this? Just think about it. Look what we got here. I'm investing 110 the next year. I want to earn 1 plus the interest rate on that. How much is that? Take 1.10 times 110, and what do you get, guys? I've got a future value at the end of 2 periods now. What's it going to be? 121. And now I leave the 121 for another year, don't I, if I'm doing 3 years? So if you want to get your future value 3 years from now, 1 plus the interest rate again, right, guys? Times it. Equals the future value at the end of 3 years, which is where we were going to go, right? Okay, so how much is that? 121 times 1.10. What do you get, guys? 133.10. Okay? Now that's fine if you're just doing 3 years. Oh, by the way, let's talk about how we would say this. What is the future value? What is the future value here, right? It's the future value of $100 invested now for 3 periods at 10% compound interest. What is that future value? 133.10. By the way, what's the present value of 133.10 discounted at 10% for 3 periods? What do you think it might be? How about 100? Discounting is just taking the interest out. Compounding is putting the interest in. Big deal. Okay, so what I've got here then, and how much interest would I earn, by the way, in that 3 years? Seeing as I invested 100, and now I have 133.10. How much interest do you think it would have earned? 33.10, just common sense, okay? But this is kind of a waste of time. How many of you agree it was a waste of time the way I did it? What could I have done instead? I've got 1.1 times 1.1 times 1.1. Does anybody know how to write that more simply? Yeah, it's 1.1 to the third, right? 1.1 times itself times itself. That's 1.1 to the third, isn't it? So what I do is I write it like this. I take my present value at time 0, and I have 100. Right? That's my present value at the beginning. Times 1 plus the interest rate, which is 1.10 in this case, right? That's 1 plus the interest rate. And then I raise it to the number of periods, 3 periods, right? That's what he suggested. And that's exactly right. Okay? And what would I have then? I'll have the future value at the end of that number of periods, which is going to be the future value into 3 periods, because I'm doing it 3 times. Okay, raised it to the third. So this is what? What's 1.10 raised to the third? $133. I'm sorry, 1.33. 1.33. 1. So what it is? Everybody agree it is, isn't it? Okay. Gee, that's familiar. So then what I could do is I could take that 100 times the 1.331, and what do I get? I get 133.10. Of course I do. It doesn't matter, right? What order I do my multiplications to get there, does it? So what I've got now is I can calculate this future value easier. How about if it's for, 20 periods? Do you really want to do 20 different multiplications like this? Geez, what a waste of time. What do? You raise it to the 20th instead, huh? You don't care how many periods there are. What if it's a 30-year mortgage on a house? 30 years, right? 12 months. It's 360. I raise it to the 360th, and I got it. You got it? So you don't want to just do one at a time. Imagine how long that takes. Okay, so we use a formula for it. It's no big deal. All right? So, does everybody get the idea on this one? Real straightforward, isn't it? By the way, do I care what the present value is? Not in the least. Do I care what the number of periods is? Not in the least. Do I care what the interest rate is? Not in the least. Doesn't matter. Calculation is exactly the same, and you're either going to use a calculator or maybe you'll use a present value future value table. Let's look at the present value tables, though. Not that I want you necessarily to use them. You're welcome to use them in this class, right? You can use the present value tables. Bring your book with you, right? So you've got it. All right? Or maybe I'll hand some out by each different interest rates that are in your table. Where's the present value table in the book? This is the back, appendix A, is the very first one. Where's the back of the book? right after page 685. Let's start again, 688. All right, let's take a look at these tables. They're kind of interesting anyway. If you take a look at the future value, I'm sorry. On table A3, page A2 there, table A3, future value of $1 is what we just did. What these tables do for you is they did the calculation, right? They took 1.10 and raised it to the third if you look where. Look at 3 periods in table A3. Everybody with me? Do this. Right? And then go over until you get to 10%. So it's second part of the table there. And what do you get for 3 periods at 10%? 1.331. So you don't have to calculate it yourself. You find it. Right? It's no big deal. What's kind of nice about these tables, though, is it really shows you the difference and by the way, you won't use these tables in real life. You'll use a calculator. If you've got a nice calculator, it'll calculate it for you. Make sure you really know how to use your calculator, and make sure you know if the answer makes sense when you get the answer. I'll get ridiculous answers from people. I'll have people tell me that they're going to invest money now and have less later when it's compound interest growing. I'll have people tell me that they're willing to invest more now than they're going to get later. Right? You know, come on. Nobody can do that. It's ridiculous. So you don't know what you're doing then, right? So be thinking when you do it. Don't just do the math, okay? Especially using a calculator is dangerous. In real life, I use Excel every time, right? I use a computer. I wouldn't use a calculator, but again, see what I'm doing then, right? I have to do individual calculations, retype it, and you just do it in a computer, no big deal. But everybody uses this for everything. We value everything based on time value of money. Every business gets valued this way. When UPS buys a truck, they figure out what all the cash flows are going to be out to that truck and in from that truck, right? Selling services, delivering stuff with the truck over the entire life. And plus the cost of buying it and all the taxes associated with it, they schedule out what all the cash flows are going to be for the entire life of that truck. They figure out what the risk level is related to that business activity, and then they discount all those cash flows back to now, and that's how much they're willing to pay for the truck. Not a penny more. They're happy to pay less. But you know what? Whoever's selling the truck does about the same thing, and they know how much UPS should be paying them. They both figure out the side of the deal before you do it. Things don't really sell for whatever people sell them for. Otherwise, I want $2 million in my house, okay? It's worth a couple hundred. Right? Worth what it's worth. But you have to figure out what it's worth, you guys, in business people. It's not just whatever it is. Imagine what an iPhone would cost if they could have whatever they want for it. Infinity, right? How do they decide how much people are willing to pay? It's tough, right? So that's a hard choice, okay? All right, anyway, a lot to listen to it. All right, anyway, but look at this thing. What happens if your interest rate is 15% for 20 years? What would $1 become? Leave it at 15% for 20 years. Look at the table. You can see it growing there. What would it become? 16.336, right? Huh. What if it's only 12% interest for 20 years? You only have 9.6 times your money. Huh. Why do I have my money invested at 12 instead of 15? Because the stock market, less risk. The stock market is about 12 per year, and if you want 15, you got to assume quite a bit more risk. I'm not willing to do that. More risk of losing my money. Why don't I have it invested at 1%? We don't even go that low. Let's go to 2%. Why don't I have it in 2% savings account? Gee, what would happen to my money in 20 years? $1 would grow to $1.49. What will happen in the stock market over time on average? What tends to happen? 965. Huh. When do I have to invest in the stock market or in savings accounts? I told you people effectively take wealth away from people. You know, my grandparents and generations before that put their money in savings accounts. The banks took the money and invested in the stock market. We earned all the time. Okay. We stopped doing that, right? People started putting money into the stock market. So people have to find other ways to take our money away from us. And so we've had some recent scandals where people cheated, right? Because they can't just have us give it to them because we're crazy people, right? We're afraid of risk, don't understand. You guys are going to do this, how to calculate it, so we can count it with risk. By the way, we had to diversify the risk in the stock market. What we do is we buy a whole bunch of different stocks. We don't put all of our money in one stock. What happens if you put all your money in one stock and it turns out to be, say, Enron? They go broke, right? So any one stock can go way up or way down. You can make more money maybe with one stock if you get lucky. It's kind of gambling, right? So what we do is we buy a whole bunch of different stocks. My investments are across the entire S&P 500, Standard & Poor's 500, right? It's in mutual funds, it's called. And I own a whole bunch of different stocks, right? So are some of them going to lose money? Yes. Are some of them going to make money? Yes. But what will I earn? Whatever the S&P does is what I get, okay? And over time, it tends to go up at about 12 to 13% per year. Year after year after year after year. By the way, some years it goes down by 50%. In really bad years, it doesn't happen, right? And then some years it goes up 25% too, right? In really good years. So it's averaged out to 12 over the last 34 years. Yeah, right. That's a pretty good return, huh? And by diversifying, it's less risky. So we get better returns with less risk, is the idea. Okay, and you'll talk about this stuff in your finance classes, more accounting classes. All right, anyway, so this is compounding. How about discounting? What does discounting look like, you guys? It's really simple. What would you do if you wanted to figure, let's say we did not know this one now. We don't know the $100, right? Let's say we do not know this. Everybody got it? But I know this piece, this piece, this piece. How would you get from the 133.10 back to the 100? You can do it right there with those numbers, can't you? To compound, you multiply. Guess what you do to discount? You divide. So if I took 133.10, future value 3 years from now, and I discounted it by 1.1, right, by 10%, divided in 1.1, what do I get? I get 121, don't I? Then I take 121 and divide it by 1.1, what do I get? 110. And then I take 110 and I divide it by 1.1, what do I get? 100. And I would have calculated the present value, right? That is the present value of $133 received 3 years from now, discounted at 10%. How much interest will I have removed if I take 133.10 down to 100? 33.10, right? I'm reversing the process. How would I write that, you guys? How would I write that? I'd take my future value some number of periods from now, which in my little example is 133.10, right, guys? I'd do that. And I would divide, so everybody realize that taking 1 over something is the same thing as dividing, right? I would divide by 1 plus the interest rate raised to that number of periods. So it'd be 1 over 1.10 in our case, right? 10% raised to the third. Everybody see it? Not a big deal, is it? Okay? And that would give me a present value at time 0. And I already know that's going to be 100 because I just calculated it the other direction. But let's prove it. What is 1 over 1.10 raised to the third? Plug that in your calculator. What do you get? 1 over 1.10 raised to the third. Point something. 0.75. 0.75. 13. We could run it out a few decimal places. So what's worth 75 cents? $1 received 3 years from now, discounted at 10% is only worth 75 cents. If I invest 75 cents at 10% interest, what will it grow to in 3 years? In the first year, you earn about 7.5 cents, right? Add that to the 75. Now you're 80 something, 83 something like that, right? You earn 8.3 cents that year. Add that. Get the idea? Now I'm 89 cents. I don't know. Okay, and then okay, and then add what? 9 cents, and I'm at $1 on it. It's true, isn't it? But that's what $1 is worth. So what's $133.10? $133.10 worth? If they're each worth 75 cents. Just multiply them together. Each one of them is worth 75 cents. So take 75 cents, 0.75 times 133.10, and of course you get the 100 number. There's nothing to this. Do you care what the interest rate is? Do you care what the present value is? Do you care what the future value is? No. Just calculate what you need to do. You don't care what the number of periods is? Okay? Just relax and do it. Does everybody see this thing? It's just not a big deal, is it? Okay? Let's take a look at the present value of sum table. And you can see it happening. Take a look at on page A1, I guess. Actually, it's going to be on A2, isn't it? Because we want 10%. So go to A2 at the top. You go to the 10% column and go down to what? 3 years? Whoops. Present value of sum. Yeah. Whoops, that's the annuity. Line 3. It's on page. Oh, it's the top of page A1. I apologize. Top of page A1. Okay. Go to the 10% column. So for table A1. Go to the 10% column and go down to 3 periods. What's the number? 0.7513. How about that? They calculated it quick. Okay. So, by the way, how about if instead you earn 12? You're going to have 12%. What would it be? Over 71 cents? Why? It's more risky. There's more interest. Present values go down as risk goes up. Okay. Now, what are the interest rates composed of, you guys? Let's talk about this for just a second. Anybody in here have a credit card? Besides me? Because I don't. My wife does. They're all everything's in her name. I don't exist. I think you got that yet? It's pretty funny. I really don't. Last time we bought a car, they said I don't really need to sign. I don't have any credit anymore. So now I can't. If you ever leave me, I can't buy anything. That's a good thing. Yeah, I think so. No, you won't need it. So, interest. So, does somebody have an interest rate that's pretty high? Anybody got an 18%er? Yeah, they're awful. Yeah. You know, do you even know what your interest rate is? I don't mean if your parents gave you with their credit card. Yeah, the interest rate's low then because they have credit. Right? So, you know, I don't know what our interest is on our credit cards, but I don't know, 5% maybe. And then you guys, if you got credit right now, you'd be 18 or more. Why? What's different about me and you? Besides, I'm old, you're young. What's that? I have established credit here. Man, that's it. What does that mean? They trust me and they don't trust you. You are in a high-risk group. There's a whole bunch of people sitting, well, maybe not sitting in this room, that's all, right? But a whole bunch of people your age do what? Borrow money and don't repay. So you're high risk. What about people my age that own houses and have jobs and have retirement accounts and stuff? We pay. Right? We pay. Plus, me personally, I've been paying and paying and paying, right? Right? Never fail to pay anything. So, that's good strategy, guys. Don't do that. You know what my son did to me? I co-signed in a car for him when he was going to college. And he skipped a couple payments. I screwed up my credit. About $50,000. Yeah. This is when he's like 18, right? Buys his car. What an idiot. He had the money sitting in the bank, which I had given to him because he was going to college and didn't make his car payments. Yeah, thanks a lot. Don't do that to yourself, right? I still run with that. Tell his daughter could get him now, right? Later she's going to get into it. Say, oh, no, not my sweet little girl. Yeah, she'll do it. Okay, anyway. And I'll laugh. So, well, live that long so I can see it, right? Yeah, see it happen to him. Anyway, okay. So what's the interest rate composed of, though? Why is mine 5 and yours 18? If that's the case, yours is 12. Why? It's risk. So what do you think interest rates are composed of? One is a risk premium, we call it. One is risk, you guys. Okay? But you know, when we talked about that deal where she didn't want the money, 100 years from now, let's think about it in these terms. Would you give me $100 right now, and I'll give you your $100 back a year from now? You give it to me? I get your money, and I get to use it, and you don't get to have it. And I'm going to spend it on bourbon. You don't care what I spend it on. But if you're okay with giving me $100, you really value bourbon, don't you? This is the second time in my career that I've had somebody this sweet that I asked a question like that. She will give me $100, and I don't have to pay her for the $100.
Well, in years.
I'll just give you $100. I'm not giving you more than I don't pay. want that deal?
I don't know.
Do you want that deal? No, you did. No, why not? He doesn't want it. Do you want it? It's not even mean, you know, she doesn't want it. It's not even mean, they're just too sweet. Okay, what's the deal here? There's no interest. What happens if she gives me the $100? I get to use it. I get the pleasure of using it. She doesn't. I have it. She doesn't. I get to use your asset and you don't get anything for it. That's really nice. So realize I heard you were qualified. Okay, yeah, that's really sweet. But you're taking advantage of it, that, right? Because I can take $100 and invest it, make some money with it. I get to keep the investment, the return on the investment, and give you your 100 back, right? And it wouldn't be very fair, would it? Okay? We wouldn't like that. So we want some rent on our money. It's just rent. Okay, it's a true return or real return. So I want a true or a real return. And believe it or not, economists and accountants and finance people that are academic types, right? This true return or fair return or real return, we actually estimate this thing. 2 to 3% it seems to be over time. People want 2 or 3% just for the use of their money. Rent on the money. Okay? I get to use the money, you don't. So you want that. But would that be enough? What could happen? You can lose it. That's the risk part. I could never pay you. So you want something for that, don't you? And now we're thinking about it. She wants a lot for that, knowing it's me, right? Okay. You know, I could get rid of that for you. My wife has this lighthouse holder. You got to see it. I have no idea what it costs. Way too much. It's got glass on 3 sides, and it's got beautiful wood at the back of it. It's got glass shelves in it, and it has halogen headlights shining down into it. It's called a curio cabinet or something. It's this great big thing. I mean, it's big. It's not quite the size of one of those windows, but maybe close. And it's big, and it's full of lighthouses. God knows what those cost. But anyway, so I love it. So anyway, so she's got this thing, and we own it. We pay for it. You get the whole title of that. It's worth more than the $100. So now she no longer has risk, right? Because she could come and get the curio cabinet. Couldn't really. Never did have my wife, but say she could. Okay, say she could. She could come and get that curio cabinet, to sell it to get her $100. So she has no risk. Now we could get rid of the risk component of that, couldn't we? Do you still want more than 2 or 3% though? Probably there's something else. You guys haven't experienced much of this in your lifetime, but it happens. It does over time. When I started working, I made $9,600 a year. Now when you graduate, if you're going to be an accounting major and you get a job with one of the big firms, right? It's exactly the same job. You're going to make around $50,000 a year. It's the same amount of money. You get your head around that. $10,000 then in 1972, January of 72, was exactly the same as $50,000 now. What do you think? Really close. It's 5 times as much. That's why I was having so much trouble with that example of the tires. Right? Yeah. Okay. So what's the deal? Inflation. So there's a couple percent inflation most years. So do you think interest rates include expected inflation? Of course. Your dollars can buy less each year. You guys are aware of that, right? You see prices going up, don't you? Right? As prices go up, and you're making about the same amount of money because you're young, right? It's getting squeezed, huh? If you're making minimum wage, the minimum wage hasn't gone up in how many years? Oh man, it's just ridiculous. Your purchasing power is just going down and down and down every year. They got to pay every year, right? It's crazy. Okay, it's really sad. Expected inflation. It's expected because we don't know what it's going to be. Okay, when we add these two together, we call it risk-free. All right? Great stuff to know. If you take Accounting 211, we're going to be directly using this. When you do BA 315, you're going to be doing this, right? Whichever route you're going. Okay? BA 315 is finance class for business majors. Okay, so risk-free is the true return plus expected inflation, and then we add risk. And right now, risk-free is around 4%, 4 to 5%. Right? So this is probably around 2% expected. And this is whatever it is. Well, let's see. If my interest rate is about 5%, what's my risk? 1, nothing. That's how much they're charging me, right? Maybe 1% over here. Got the idea? If somebody's interest rate is 18%, like you guys, if you went and got credit on your own, now what? What must this number be? Because this stays the same for everybody, huh? Oh, the true return and the expected inflation is the same for everybody, right? True return is always 2 to 3%, we think. Expected inflation is whatever it is. If it fires up, then interest rates go up. That's what causes interest rates to go up. People expect more inflation. Interest rates go down when they expect less inflation, okay? And of course the government gets involved in that, what the expectation is. All right, so plus risk, what must it be for this one? I don't know, 13%? Yeah, chance of not getting paid, okay? Minimal versus pretty high, okay? But you got the idea? That's what's going on. So the interest rate can be whatever it is on the deal, huh? Okay. I don't really care how much I invest and how much I get back. I care what my rate of return is compared to my risk level. I'm not real happy if I earn a 15% return and I assumed a 20% risk. That didn't work out very well. I want a 20% return for a 20% risk. I'm happy if I only assume a 5% risk and I earn 8. Now I'm happy. That worked out good. Okay? So it's not how big it is. It's how much risk you're taking versus how much return you're getting. And that's what we have to measure. Otherwise, everybody just takes huge risks, right? Because you might be. Well, you're not going to do that. I don't want to invest my money with somebody who happens to take ridiculous risks close to you. So when somebody promises me something too good to be true, what do you think? What if I were to tell you, you know what, the first job you make $120,000 a year? Well, kids come to college and say, oh yeah, I'm going to make my dad next first year at work. Good luck, there's my mom. Good luck, you're not either. And they're telling me you're not going to, but oh no, I'm going to. I have people actually tell me I don't want to be a CPA because they don't make enough money their first year. What are you going to do, kid? Oh, well, I'm going to be a professional baseball player and I'm going to make $4 million my first year. Well, you know, if you're on the baseball team, you're that good. We have some kids here that actually go pro, straight out of school, out of development, good baseball team. And you know what I tell them if they're an accounting major? You got a shot. Okay, well, maybe. You know, make it into the minors, you know, get a contract and get a chance to play in the minors at least. Yeah, I think I can. You know what I tell them? Go for it. You can come back and go back, return to the real world later if it doesn't pan out. And even if it does pan out at the end of their baseball career, you know, in 3 years, right? Probably. And they're rich. They can come back, right? It's okay. Fine. They can come back and finish school, they can come back, or they can go ahead and finish school, and then go play baseball. You can chase your dreams, you guys. It's cool. It's all right. I've got a guy in intermediate, I already told you that he is a musician, right? And they're playing in bars in town. He's not old enough to drink. He can't drink, but he can play in some of LA, right? And he's playing, and then he's studying frantically, accounting, so he can be a CPA. Why would he bother with that thing if he has this dream? Because he's realistic about what the dream is. He really doesn't want to be 50 years old, hanging out in some bar someplace, drinking and smoking, right, and playing music and starving to death. He might be doing that, but he won't be starving to death because during the day he's going to be working as a CPA. Unless he makes a whole bunch of money as a musician, and then I bet he won't work as a CPA. He'll hire one of you guys to help him manage his money, right? Feel free to chase your dreams, it's all right. Feel a little realistic about it, maybe. Go away. Now you want to study this stuff. I better throw this tape away, right, guys? Carol, you cover anything.